as with all of the people taking this class, I've been taking 3 classes at the same time: infographics, QR codes, and digital writing. When I began the process of taking these classes, I kind of started hopping around and doing a little bit from each one, and then found it was actually easier to complete one class in its entirety before moving on to the next. So, the idea for my QR final project actually came from my infographics final project. Before I began my EdgeAspire classes this summer, I actually started by curriculum mapping with my 4th grade colleagues for the language arts maps that we use. We talked about a lot of different things, but one of that we spent a lot of time on was actually trying to employ more of the gradual release that we use so heavily in reading and incorporating it more into our writing curriculum. So, what we did was each month or unit for writing, we came up with a project that we would model whole class. Then the students would take what they learned and apply it to a partner or small group activity. And then finally, the students would create or craft an independent assignment where they would use all that they've learned throughout the entire unit to a completely independent activity. That all brings me to the January and February writing curriculum map, where the students will be working on informational writing. This is a screenshot of our map where it kind of shows you the way we will progress through our unit using that gradual release model. We're going to begin the unit by whole class modeling using a bubblegum or fireworks A to Z passage, and that's our main resource as far as pulling information, talking about paraphrasing versus copying, note taking, text features, citations, all of that kind of stuff falls under that whole class lesson, and the passage that I will be using is the bubblegum passage. The students will then progress onto a partner task where they'll select their topic from a list of approved topics. Now, the students are grouped based on their reading level, and that is how they get their first main resource, and they're required to find their own secondary resource. This partner project is where I believe that integrating the digital writing, the infographic, and even some QR codes is going to come into play, is in this second partner activity. So while I was doing some research for my classes, I came upon this infographic for Coca-Cola. And as you can see, it's kind of the perfect storm of the 3 classes I was taking. It obviously included infographics, QR codes, and it was published publicly. So therefore, it also incorporated some of that digital writing piece. This was really the spark that created the culmination project that would integrate all 3 of my activities into one. However, I have had to tweak it a little bit to see that it would also meet my curriculum. Here's the beginning of my infographic. I went through the information that I would use with my students for the invention of bubblegum. As I said, that was our whole class modeling piece, so that is why I used it as my sample for what the students would create with the infographic project. Now, when the students are working on the infographic project, they're going to have a topic that is leveled for them, as well as a partner who is doing the exact same topic. They're going to do the research with that partner, and they're going to be required to use 2 sources in order to gain all of this information. Now, all of the information will not then be placed into the infographic. What they're asked to do is use one piece of their note taking, whether it is on the history of it, whether kind of depends on what their topic is, but this is where I'd like them just to select one part to create the infographic on. And I kind of did this part on the background of the history of bubblegum, or the invention of bubblegum. And you can see that it kind of takes the reader through in an infographic style, kind of through a timeline of bubblegum being created. It includes some photographs of the man who created it. And when I was working on this, I kind of thought, well, how could I actually take this even further? And how could I really extend my students' even a little bit better than that. So what I did was actually create the second page of my infographic. Now, I created this on Word, and I think if I were having my students do it, I would actually do it on a different device or a different tool, like an online tool or something that's more in line with creating an infographic, but it really made it perfect for me to incorporate what I wanted. So let me move to the next slide. And this is the slide that I chose to incorporate the video for the QR code. And you'll see that in this case, I have my bibliography, I have my bubblegum facts, and then I have my QR code for the Bubblegum Factory video. And this video clip is of the factory where Double Bubble is actually made, which was the original bubble gum that was created. Then I went through and kind of incorporated a graph. Again, making sure that I hit all of those infographic kind of areas. What I want for the students to do on their actual project is that they're going to need to find two sources and then they're going to link them as QR codes. They can be Google Earth that will relate to locations that kind of support their research. They could be to websites that have additional information. They could be QR codes that are linked to photographs, videos, even audiobooks, whatever they feel will best support their project. Once they've done that, they'll be graded using a rubric. Again, this is to focus on one area of their research. So they might only have the bubblegum facts, the bubblegum video, and then a second QR code as well as the bibliography down there on the bottom. They might not have the entire first page, or perhaps they have the first page and then their QR links are a little bit different. I kind of made mine a little bit more broad than what I would ask for of my students. This is the rubric that I created in order to evaluate the infographic and QR codes. I used a 4 through 1 scale, 4 being excellent and 1 needing improvement, and I asked the students to focus on an area of content as far as what information is included, the graphics that they chose to incorporate, as well as that being the kind of infographic style, whether or not they chose timelines and text features and things like that. The two QRs that they chose, I decided to focus on whether or not they actually deepened the understanding of the topic, whether or not there were two included, of course. And then I also focused on whether or not they related and didn't take away from the focus of the reader, that they truly benefited the reader. Finally, because it is an infographic project, I incorporated the attractiveness of it, the use of color and font and things to make it actually look nice, and then mechanics just being a language arts focused project. So that's it, the culmination of what I did this summer, the collection of my 3 build your own classes, infographics, QR codes, and writing in the digital age. And hopefully you found it to be something of value.